Welcome to View from the Markets. This week we're in Tokyo and we're joined by Mr. Jim Rogers, an international investor and author. Jim, welcome.
I am delighted to be here.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Could we start with the dollar, which obviously has been something you've commented on a lot over the past few years? You've said that you've been negative on the dollar for quite some time. Do you still remain skeptical?
Aren't you? Yes, everybody in the world is becoming more and more skeptical about the dollar now. You know, the Chinese, the Russians, everybody realizes now that there's a problem. The dollar's a terribly flawed currency. It's near its low for many years now. There's so many pessimists at the moment that it would not surprise me if there were a rally, because whenever there are a lot of pessimists, including me, it usually leads to a rally. So if there's a rally, I don't think it will last terribly long, no more than a year or two at most. I hope I'm smart enough to sell that rally. If it doesn't rally, and if it does continue to go down, I'll probably have to join in like everybody else and panic and sell the dollar. But at the moment, I'm terribly pessimistic over the foreseeable decade or two.
And you were saying earlier, I think, that you were going to sell down your US dollar holdings. Is that something you've almost completed now? Or?
Well, I sold down most of them. I actually have more now than I did, say, 3 months ago, because I have seen all this pessimism rising. But still, the US dollar is not a very large part of my portfolio, but I do have a few more now than I did then, in anticipation that there might be a rally. But again, basically, I am skeptical, pessimistic, and expect to have no dollars someday in my life, even though I'm an American citizen.
Okay, and so in that sense, you obviously must be very skeptical about about it being a reserve currency.
Oh yes, I mean, many people are now saying, what are we going to do? The Chinese have suggested special drawing rights. Others have made various and sundry suggestions, if only to say, what do we do? America's enemies are starting to use other currencies, as you know. The Venezuelans are using the euro. The Iranians are using the yen. America's friends are starting to worry, too. So, yes, something is going to be done. Either the market's going to force it, or people are going to anticipate the coming problem and solve the problem. I doubt that. The world is rarely that smart, especially bureaucrats. So the market will probably force a solution on all of us in the next few years.
Can you see what that might be?
If the U.S. fell into the sea today, it would be the euro, because there's nothing else. 20 years from now, it might be the renminbi. I mean, that's absurd right now. The renminbi is a small currency, and it's blocked as well. But it's the only thing I can foresee with a big enough economy and a big enough population and big enough reserves that could solve the problem in 20 years. Between now and then, they might try the euro for a while, if out of desperation, if we had to, if we're forced to. They could try a basket of currencies, the special drawing rights. I don't think that would work very long. They could try a currency based on a basket of commodities. There are many things they could try. It just depends on when the problems erupt. And I do expect a currency crisis or semi-crisis sometime in the next year or two, because there's so many imbalances in the world. And that may sound radical, but it's always worked that way. Whenever there have been lots of problems, you've had problems in the currency markets.
And when you say a currency crisis, what could you go into a bit more detail on what that might, how you envisage that?
If you were Icelandic, you would know what a currency crisis is. It was 2 or 3 years ago, your currency collapsed, and you lost everything, or much of what you had. If you were Latvian, or some other current countries here in the past, this is not something in ancient history out of textbooks. This is something that's happened recently in the last 3 or 4 years. There have been some small currency crises going on, but what happens is some currencies will just totally lose value. People will no longer accept them. You know, people will go bankrupt. And maybe the next one's going to come from who knows where, Ukraine, Argentina, I don't know. If you were Argentinian 8 years ago, you would know what a currency crisis is. This time it may be the UK, it may be the US. Normally what happens is you have small countries that we don't think about. Something goes wrong, and it starts snowballing, and the next thing you know, everybody's saying, how'd this happen? That's going to happen again before too much longer.